Okay, so, okay, very good. So what I would like, no, seriously, Rabbi, in other words, that question about our codes won't be directly about our code, but it will bear on our codes. So I thought what we would do is that it's important to go through the Gemara, the Chaf Zayin, Siman Chaf Zayin in the Torah reflects very much on our reading or a proper a reading of Kedushin Daf Hey Amud Bet. So I turn you towards there, and everyone has their Gemara so that we can keep the faces clear, and I think that will be a good thing. And so we go to, and we have to see really what are the issues that we have. Issues of, we're talking about kesef. The kesef is also comes with a pronouncement, announcement, statement. But we'll see there's more issues than that surrounding the statement. It's surrounding the Maisa of Kiddushin, which we know is a Natina. Well, we'll see what it says here. So let's take a look at the middle of Hamid Bet Tanu Rabbanan. And let's see, here we are. Gary, could you start us off? Do you have it?
Me, 1 second.
Kiddushin Hamid Bet. This, by the way, these dapim and Kiddushin are very popular with Rishonim, Achronim, very popular with Achronim. In fact, the whole first parak, not just for the issues of marriage, but the whole issues of, well, there's a lot of issues. I mean, some of those issues are in a lot of other Masechta too, but what really, what constitutes an act? Good, the Seder. So, okay, Gary's starting. Lead off, Gary. Wait, where did he go? Turned into a table with a.
It's the Shulchan Aruch, right?
Yeah, no. We're looking at the Sechet. Oh, Shulchan Aruch. I didn't catch that. So, and what's the tail? There's a tail there or something? Oh, never mind. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, so
I was wasting time.
My wife uses it for work, so sometimes it comes up.
Okay, good. Now get to know Rabbanan.
Amud Bet, right?
Hey, Amud Bet, halfway down.
There we are. Tanu Rabbanan. Ketzad, right?
Kesef or Kesef?
Kesef.
That's where the question goes. Yeah.
Natan la kesef, או שווה כסף, ואמר לה, הרי את מקודשת לי, הרי את מאורסת לי, הרי את לעינתו, הרי זו מקודשת. אבל היא שניתנה ואמרה, היא, הרי אני מקודשת לך, הרי אני מאורסת לך, הרי אני לך לעינתו, אינה מקודשת.
Stop there, you got it. But now, summarize or describe what you just read.
Well, it's basically saying that the way I understand it, quite simply, is that the entire chiyuv for confirming a status on the woman is solely conditional on the man and his intention to say it. If the woman in any way wants to confer that status upon the man, then the rabbis push back against it.
Okay, okay, very good. Now let's go back to the first half, and let me ask about the first half. How many halachas are here in the first part? Or what are the halachas?
Well, this is dealing specifically with kesef, which is our current method of performing kiddushin.
Okay, so the first thing is what? To tell you how to do it with kesef. So this is the masa of what? Masa kiddushin, or Masa. Okay, so it's right now it's a monetary
Transaction.
right? Kesef or Shava Kesef. Okay, fine. What about the statements?
Well, the statements are all ones that confer upon a change of status. So Mekudeshet is
Okay,
sanctified.
what's missing? Many of you have been through this
So I didn't quite catch that.
in one form or another. Right? It doesn't say because of Zo or B'tabatza. I mean,
No,
they
that's
haven't brought up Tabatza, but because of Zo or B'shava Kesef Zo. And what else is missing?
Kedat Moshe Israel.
Yeah.
Kedat Yisrael, right? Kedat Yisrael, who? Kedat Moshe of Israel. Yeah, I've done this before. Kedat Moshe of Israel. Okay, fine. I'm just noticing, notifying us of that. That's that it's just not there right now. Okay, that will have to be dealt with. What I have some prior knowledge. I have my own outside knowledge, but nonetheless, that's the question. Mekudeshet, Mureshet, Intu. Why these three statements? And does he make all three statements? I'm sorry. I'm sorry for being pedantic here. But answer me anyway, Gary.
Well, Mekudeshet, Meureset. I'm not entirely sure about the meaning of intahu or inato, rather, or einato.
Well, yeah. Well,
Means
should be
wife or woman.
Excuse me? Means he
Oh, sorry. I think you were about to say what I was saying, which it means like wife or woman.
wife or woman. Okay, thank you. On that. Okay. By giving these three statements right now, I'm going to continue. To give me these three statements, what are they saying about these three statements?
That they chal, that they work.
That
They
any
work to-
one of these, right? There's an or that that's what I was looking for, right? Either this, either that, or that. Which also is giving the assumption right now that we have no other statement.
And actually, we know from Halakha.
In other words, there's no other way. Right now, there's no other way of doing it. You have three possibilities. Now, Mekudesha gets primacy of place or of order. It's number one, but there's no real other indication that the other two are any less.
Yes.
Disagreement? I don't know. I'm just noticing what's here. I'm only talking to you about what's here and what's not here. Okay. All right. Any comment? Yes, Ruben's got a comment. Make it quick.
I
Ruben.
read it a bit differently. I read the Mishnah as just saying like those are three examples I think you can say. Not necessarily like saying those are the only three things you could say. By saying more than one thing, they're basically saying there's more than one way to enact Kiddushim when you give someone Kesef.
Yeah. Well, there is some flexibility, right? Sarah, you got something? I can't hear you. No, who's talking? Somebody talking?
Right. So I read it as saying there is some flexibility, as you said.
Okay, fine. Okay, I reason the Kadesha, okay. So therefore, according to this, what's a you said it, Gershon, now just or somebody just say it in a little more lumdish way. According to the second half now that you started with the second half, now I brought us up to date on the first half. So the more just a lumdish way, the halacha is what regarding, well, what's the halacha? Just want to like said in a Jewish way. What do you got, Joel?
I mean, just from this Breita, if
Yeah.
he does the action and he speaks, it's good. If she does the action and she speaks, it's not good. And that's all I've got here.
Okay, so he does the Maisa
Mhm.
Kiddushin, which seems to be both. He does the Kiddushin, which includes, I would say right now, the Maisa, the Dibur, and she's out. There is no, by the way, there's no other. There's nothing else here right now regarding her except she's out of the Nesina and she's out of the Nesina and she's out of the Dibur. Okay. So now let's go to the next section. Okay, Sarah, you want to read Maski? You're reading Svardit. It's okay by me. Maski Fla Rav Papa.
Makif la Rav Papa, Tama, Dinatanhu va'amarhu.
Yeah, but
Hana-
I can't give up on Tom. You gotta give a little bit
Okay.
something here. Give me something. Yeah.
I've been corrupted by academia in this way. My apologies.
We will knock it out of you, don't worry.
Okay.
Hmm.
Oh no, I've lost my place. Great. Makif la Rav Papa, Tama, Dinatanhu va'amarhu. Hanatanhu ve'amrahi eina mekudeshet.
Mhm.
So Rav Papa,
Right. And that's basically what we've been saying up to now. You know, that first piece is what we've all been saying. Then goes on.
but then if it's really just basically what we've been saying, why is it a makifla?
Mhm.
Right? It's like a good question,
What do you
right?
mean?
And
What do you
by
mean is
the
what
way,
we've been saying?
Justice Reed says, yeah, it's the wrong term, actually, for what he's going to go, because he's going to go to the Seifa. So the real technical term that he lets us know, this is just like a side issue, is gufa. In other words, this itself is problematic. So you normally say gufa. However, not all the time. You know, it's just
Right.
plenty of time that they just say matkif or something.
I think it's
Okay,
Matkif, the
but
two halves.
let's say the attack is on us. The attack is on us. Yeah.
There's an internal contradiction in the Mishnah.
Right, but so usually what he says is gufa is a term in itself. In other words, this Mishnah is problematic.
Right.
Mishnah contradicts itself, but it's not really how to, okay, that's not a problem.
Wait, what is it? I'm
Uh,
sorry, Rev Nachum, I don't understand what the internal contradiction is.
Because if you make a
Well,
diuk
kind
from the
of-
then
Reisha, and you make, if you make it-
you're my
because we've changed two-
Say the Seifa. We'll get the internal contradiction.
yeah.
In
Okay,
the
fine.
Seifa.
Ema Seifa, aval hi shenatna lo ve'amrahi lo have kiddushin. So if she's
Right,
gives
just
it and
quote
he
it.
says it, then that doesn't
Okay.
work.
Right?
Okay. Tama dinatan
Tama.
dinatan ve'amrahi hanatanhu ve'amrahi have kiddushin.
Right? Same kind of learning. And that's why the Tama becomes very important because it reminds us that they're doing the same structure. That's an
Right,
internal
like a parallel.
contradiction. That's internal contradiction. If you only relate the Reisha, the Seifa to the Reisha in terms of the diuk from the Reisha, you know, but there's a diuk from the Seifa. There's a learning out from the Seifa. Reisha and Seifa, and those contradict each other, right? In terms of seemingly halacha.
Now, when you change two criteria
So the
simultaneously,
Gemara, yeah.
I was just going to say, when you change two criteria simultaneously, you never know which is the one that has the tokef, which is the one that is the critical one.
Well
Is it-
said. Therefore, answer. That
No,
was
and
an
therefore-
affirmation, Rabbi.
Yeah.
Even more? Yeah, what do you get?
No, nothing more.
Now,
No, that's all.
Sarah, continue. Okay, good.
Okay.
So Sarah, give the answer to Gemara, yeah.
Reisha davka seifa kedina seva.
Okay. So Reisha Dafka, just that line itself, wasn't Reisha Dafka. Reisha is specific. We hold by the Reisha. What about the Seifa here? The Seifa is Kadi Nasba. Anybody, how do you translate Kadi Nasba?
It's like this
Okay.
is just it's just the way we talk. It's like a literary.
Yeah, just the way we talk. Men are in, women are out. That's the way we talk. Evidently, it's been going around for a while. Okay, Kadi Nasba. But the Gemara takes the Mishnah seriously. and therefore the Gemara is now angry. I'm putting that in. That's my I'm directing that, okay? Just like the guy directed Alec Baldwin. What a terrible disaster there. Okay, the Tani.
Vitani Seifa Milta de Starala Laresha. Oh no, the Resha and the Seifa seem to disagree with each other.
Yeah, it's a casual remark, right?
It's
the
like
Seifa has its own legitimacy. You're just saying it's illegitimate. Okay, it's nothing. It's a nothing phrase. But it ends up contradicting through the same deal process. It contradicts the ratio. How can you allow for that? So the Gemara retreats. Go ahead. I'm sorry, sir. Go on.
Ela hachi kamar natan hu ve'amarhu pshita dehavu kiddushin. Natan hu ve'amrahi naaseh kimisha natnahi ve'amrahi velo havu.
Okay, velo havu kiddushin. Right. Explain that.
So it's obvious that if he gives the thing and he says it, then clearly that works. Right? That's our baseline set of assumptions of how this is supposed to go.
Right.
But then, sorry, I just lost my place again. She's a havukudishi. Natanhu va'amrahi na'aseh kimisha nahi va'amrahi. If he gave it and she said it, that's basically the same as if she had done both things, and obviously that doesn't work.
Okay, so that's like, right. So that's that far, yeah, we can go. Yeah, the iboyatema.
The iboyatema natanhu ve'amarhu mikudeshet. Not nahi ve'amrahi eno mikudeshet. If that's what it, like, if that's what the Mishnah wanted to say, I should have said that. But natanhu ve'amrahi sfeikahi ve'chayshina midrabanan.
So actually, it's not like, actually, this is halachic material here right now. I'm saying, in other words, it's not just in the sense of it's not only a reading of the Mishnah. It's kind of saying how, what the halacha should be, because it's an obvious set of diukim. There are two cases which there's two ways of working. The first way of working her is to say that if she has any participation, then her participation, because especially evidently controlling Dibor, but it doesn't, not even that. But since she has a participation, it's as if she's doing the whole thing, and therefore Eina Mekudeshet. Fine. That's what they're saying in complete. In other words, it is a lockdown. It's a lockdown shutout of the Isha. But the Iboyatema says, well, you can still read it a different way, right? Natan hu ba'amar, I'm sorry, Natan hu ba'amar hu mikudeshet, Natan, not nahi, ba'amrahi, ena mikudeshet, fine, we can accept that. Natan hu ba'amrahi, sfeikahi, why is it a suffix? In other words, what makes it, I just want to say about suffix, just make it an easy way. Would she need a get? Okay, would she need a get? Like, this is not working. I don't. This whole, would she need a get? In the case of not nahi, the amrahi, according to this diuk in the Mishnah, she would not need a get. Thank you. Yavdi's got the right. Would not need a get, right? But could very well be that is not natan who. He does the Maisa, right? And she does the Dibur. Maybe this works. Now the question would be, what's the svora? I'm going to ask the question here, and this is the answer I want to find out about. What's the svora that says that it may very well work that she's married?
When we say this works, we mean that we need a get to get out of it.
Get out of it, they would need a get. The reason why we say it this way, because that's the worst case situation, the most dramatic situation. Does she need a get?
Because you can always get, right.
What's the score to say that if not on who, but she did the dibur, that it could very well be Kiddushin. Maybe we'll say something Kiddushin. We know the reason why not, because we've been arguing against. against her controlling anything. But what's the argument? I'm not asking for a humanistic argument per se. What's the legal argument? What do you got, Sarah?
That if he had given it to her and said nothing, there was some other context that led you to believe that they were like Oskin Boto and yeah, and that would be fine. So it doesn't matter what she says. He gave her the ring.
We don't know.
They're already in a context where it's assumed that's what's happening.
We don't know that piece of halacha yet. We don't know that piece of halacha yet.
Well, but
You know that piece because you learned further. But we, the reader right now, the learner right now, doesn't know that piece of halacha. You can still give an answer. based
right,
on which is what Yavni, which is what.
Why not? We like the cause that he gives her something, and that it be for kiddushin, and it be for that purpose, and that it be clear that it be for that purpose. Why should it matter who says, who verbalizes?
So what you do is you're knocking out dibur, right?
Right. The point of dibur is that it be
the
clear.
Mishnah doesn't start that way. The Mishnah doesn't say natan hu, period. It says,
well, it says ketzad bekesef. It doesn't say ketzad bekesef.
You have just eliminated harayat mekudeshet out of the ritual, or relegated it to just a nice party favor.
It serves a purpose. It serves the purpose of making it clear what the intent is. And as long as we have a way of,
is it important or it's not important?
What's that?
Is it important or not important?
The vital elements, according to this model that I'm suggesting, is that are an acquisition and clarity about what the purpose of the acquisition is.
So you actually argue there. Okay, so therefore good. Therefore, are you arguing that the Maisa Kedushin is really the Natina, and the Dibur is an expression, articulation of what is happening, but that actually the Maisa is actually what's crucial, and the Natina is, I mean, the Dibur is not crucial. I just want to tell you that you've just knocked out. I mean, you have very much, based on this Dibur Sema, we have, not just you, we have, because a lot of nodding here, we have really made the Dibur into a secondary or even a secondary position, or not even a position at all. Sarah, you can address this. Sarah?
Yeah, I'm wondering if there's actually a way that it doesn't have to knock out Dibur totally, where you just say, well, if what's really going on is a kinyan of like, he's like buying something from her sort of, then obviously he has to be the one to give it. But if there's some kind of some like verbal marking, in theory, that could be done by anybody. And if it's done by her, that's fine. It might still have to be done. Right? You might say, I mean, this isn't how we actually go, but like, it seems like there's a positive, you could imagine a world where they say, oh, there has to be some Dibur, but the Nitzina has to be from him to her. And that like has a kind of rigid structure, but anybody could say the thing.
So I will.
Then that doesn't have to knock out Dibur totally. It just is like, we don't really care who does it.
I think we'll see you later in the Bach. Okay. If we get there, but we'll see you later in the Bach. He knows that world. And he calls that world the church, where the priest announces, and he says, the kol gadol, the priest announces that the marriage has been made. In other words.
But in that case, the priest also is the one giving the rings, right?
And you're right.
Which is part of the problem.
You're right.
But I'm saying we could imagine a world where actually he really has to give it to her, and there's no other way around it. But the Amirah can be from anybody.
And all this has consequences. We're making the Dibur down the announcer, the wedding announcer, right? The guy from the band. And now we have married off. He is the one who is the Messiah. He's the one, not just Messiah Kedushin, he does every damn thing. We're going to get a few comments, and then I will tell you what we'll do with it. Ruben short, Yavni short, and who else is up here? Joel, medium short. Okay, so first is Ruben and Yavni.
I don't think we should go as far as saying that Dibur is not as important. I think what the Vaitama does is that it redefines the purpose of the Dibur. right? Like the reason why the ring has to be given by the man is because he has to do this action of velakach lo. Like he has to like do this, like he has to make an action, right? They just say that dibur is important just to make sure that she understands what she's doing.
Okay.
Right? So by the logic, whether she said it or he said it, it's the same thing because they like at the end of the day, it has the same purpose. She understands what's going on. So whether she says it or he said it, it's the same thing. So we're not
Okay.
discounting the dibur, we're just redefining its purpose.
Okay, Yavni, what do you thank you, Ruben? Yavni, what do you got?
I have two questions. One, I am okay saying that we've demoted Dibul, but I don't quite know how to make it sit with the fact that we haven't said that like it's fine. We've just said that it's a safek. So somehow Deolaita, the Dibul is still vital, but the Rabbanan it's not. That's what I
Excellent,
don't quite know.
excellent, excellent. Suffolk Kedushin, okay. And we don't, right now, we have no one saying it's Kiddushin Vadai. Suffolk Kedushin is a big deal, but everything you said, fine, great. What do we have, Joel?
Well, but that's a question because I don't really know how to make my malus.
I take it as a statement. No, take it as a statement. There's a kind of a problem here.
No, but what does it mean that the Deolaita were requiring him to say the Dibul for it to count, and the Rabbanan were making it less of a requirement?
It's the right to
Listen,
Rabbanan.
you could have had a lot.
No, see the other way
You
around.
could have said,
You don't
no,
have dibur.
your case. Yeah,
Suffolk Deoraita.
Well, of course he should have said it, but B'diavad, why not? And therefore, it'd still be be Kiddushin Vada Deoraita. But you pointed out we don't say it. You've made a good point. Now, do you have a second good point to make? No, you don't. I see from your eyes. Joel, next. Let's go.
Wow. Just two things very quickly then. One is similar to what Reuven said, but like, and it leads into what Sarah said, the halacha we're going to learn later, that if they're already talking about kiddushin, that it counts. Is the dibur really is, like when I go to buy something in a store, it doesn't matter who says what. It matters who gives whom the money or who gives whom the object, because we each have like our own.
Did you see that? You saw that in the back? Where did you see that?
I know. I just that's my own svara.
Okay, it's a good svara. No, it's a good svara, because if this is a masa kinyan, we say it's a kinyan,
Yeah.
right? We say it's a kinyan. If it's a masa kinyan, it's not in a masa kinyan. It doesn't matter if the mocher or the kona makes the statement, because going back to what everyone is saying, it's an act of clarification, etc. There's responses to that, but that's actually a very strong point made by the Bach, and a strong point that you pretend to have thought of yourself. Okay, good, very nice. No, I want to stop from here and then go on, because basically what we have accomplished, we tear it up. We don't have chew it up to have full answers, but we're really concerned about we understand Kinyan in the Maisa Kinyan. We understand that. As much as we understand it, that's not our area right now. Our area of confusion is Dibur. And Dibur, but it's been pointed out here, that Dibur is merely, get rid of merely. Dibur is clarification. And then the question can be, or the possibility is, does it have to be the man? Here we say, according to the Shita, it could be the woman as well. And is there other methodologies of clarification? Okay, clarification becomes the issue. Everyone got it right in the sense of putting their finger on what is the major issue. The issue is clarification. Okay, and let's go on from there. Okay, so we didn't get to the full answer. Right? That's what I said, right? I'm sorry, just repeating myself. So what's actually those two words we haven't said? What's we should go to Rashi on that. Go to Rashi and Chayshinin Midrabanan. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I lost my place. Is there a Chayshinin Midrabanan? Yeah. The Chayshinin Midrabanan. Okay, so you have to continue with that. V'chayshina midrabanan.
שאם בא אחר וקידשה, צריכה גט משניהם. שמא לא היו של הראשון קידושין וחלו קידושי שני, או שמא של ראשון קידושין ולא של שני.
So chayshina midrabanan basically means what?
Means
Is that a status problem? What is those two words? What are those? Are those two words a status problem, or are they something else?
I think
Or
it
there's
means
certainly
we're
a
not,
status problem, but it doesn't mean anything else.
I think it means we're not sure. I'm not sure. I'm not sure I understand the question. We're not sure whether the kiddushin count, so we are cautious both ways. And Rashi
This
gives an
is
example
this is a halach of teku. Teku is, we don't know the answer, right? Tish biyanda kushiyot ubaya, teku, or Talmud shov, teku. Shivas is Tish biyanda, who knows? When the Sheikh comes, we'll find out the answer. But we can't work that way. We can't work that way in practicality. Therefore, the rabbis are worried about it, that maybe she is actually married with the first guy, Midiraisa, and therefore, Chayshina Midirabana, but maybe she's not, she needs a divorce. She needs a divorce from both people. If she was then married. What happens? Again, to say the case, she gets married in this way that she spoke, and then I don't know. The way the movie would have it, the best man says, "I want to marry you," and they get married, and very good. The rabbi standing there, any of you guys are there, and what do you do now? Okay, and now congregation, we have the opportunity for another 2 mitzvahs, and please join me as we write a get for each one because we don't know who she's married to. And it is a suffix deraisa, but the problem is because the rabbis can't. They're treating it as a suffix deraisa. They're treating it as a suffix. That's how I read it. Okay, good. So that's where we are on that.
It's a suffix
Yeah,
derabanan because dibur is a requirement from derabanan.
No, because
I was confused.
because are you clear? I mean, no one's clear on it. I mean, not fully clear. It was that, but this becomes greater much of the topic. If this is read as a halachic narrative thing, this is the dramatic moment, What is the status? And here we fail because we don't know what the status is. We don't know what the status. If she's really married to the first guy, if we knew that for sure, then the second guy is just a meaningless statement when he said the rayat potentially, it does that. But we don't really know. So I would say it's something you're right, so. And the rabbis just can't come to a conclusion on it. But it's a suffix. You're right. We say chashin and midirabanan. Rabbis, right? Okay, you got what I'm saying, and that's good enough. Now, okay, now we're going to good stuff. Amar Shmuel, and so let's see. I don't know, Ilana, you ready to read today? Can't hear you.
Sure. Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I hear you loud and clear. Amar
Great.
Shmuel.
אמר שמואל בקידושין נתן לה כסף ושווה כסף, ואמר לה, הרי את מקודשת, הרי את מאורסת, הרי את לי.
Well, the li is I don't know if the li, I don't know if the li belongs there or not. Hare at, yeah, li
Okay.
too, or maybe li, right?
maybe לי. לאינתו, הרי זו מקודשת, הריני
There, right after that, the quotation, you would put a semicolon.
okay.
Good.
Okay.
Hareni,
So Harini, Ishach, Harini, Baalach, Harini, Arusach, Ein Kan Beit Mechush. So Shmuel, go ahead.
Good.
Shmuel says that when it comes to Kiddushin, if he gives her money or something worth money, and he says to her you are Mekudeshet, or you are Meoreset, or you are, is it a wife or my wife? I guess it doesn't matter.
Well, here there's no, yeah, well, all the other ones also, there's no Lee.
True.
So I think drop it for now.
Got it. So it's, then it works.
Yeah.
But if he says, I am hereby your man, or I am your husband, or I am your Mekudeshet, then don't worry about it, because there's no, we're not even worried. It's definitely not a valid marriage.
Yeah, there's not even a hint of suspicion. With
Right.
how he
No
translated it.
stop it's a clear case.
It's a clear case. Good. Continue reading. Omar.
Wait.
Which shows, I mean, which shows that means that the statement is not just a clarification of what's going on. Because if that were the case, this is clarifying what's going on. Hareini ishech, I am your husband. So that's clear what's going on. And yet it doesn't work. So it's not, the statement is not just the purpose of clarifying the matzah.
Well, I would say it's a unsuccessful clarification. In other words, it doesn't, well, because we get, so here we can go, let's go to Rashi, Ein Kan Beit.
Sorry, quick
Me'ev.
question. Is Shmuel arguing on the Vibaitama?
I'm sorry?
Is the Shmuel arguing on the previous statement?
I don't think so.
Well, because he's like the previous statement said that in case he gave it and she said it, then it's a chashar d'Rabbanan, right? We have a suffix. But according to Shmuel, anything that he doesn't say, and even if he doesn't use the right language, and can be mechush, it's not kiddushim at all. So for me at least, it seems like Shmuel is arguing with the previous statement.
I'm wondering, I usually don't turn to this, but I'm just wondering if that last part of the prior conversation was the end result of the edit. In other words, so how do we, Rebbe, how do we pass in? Well, we're chayshinin. It might just be that. Let me take it that way right now. You still may be right, but let me take it that way. Now, okay, Ilana, go to the Rashi. Rashi is chayshinin. I lost it. For chayshinin, no, we did that already.
You're saying with the Rashi Ein Kan push? Yeah.
Ein Kan, no. Yeah, Ein Kan, right. No, Beit Midrash we did already. No. So maybe I'm wrong.
Oh, we didn't do it.
Oh, yeah. That's the one. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Do it. Ein Kan.
Okay. So Ein Kan afilu safek kiddushin, meaning there isn't here even a doubt or a worry about kiddushin. D'chi kach ketiv, v'lo sheikach atzmo la. The Girushin Ein Kan Beit Mechush af lefusla lechachona.
Lehakuna.
Kehuna. Thank you.
Yeah, she can marry a Kohen. She's not, right. But let's go to the so the Rashi gives us the drasha.
No, Rashi makes an important point. He's saying that
Drasha is crucial. And what is the drasha, Ilana?
I think he's saying that there isn't here even a safek. I think it's that he can't like take himself to her.
No, wait. The for quotation marks, ki yikach isha tisha. That's a pasuk from the Torah. That the two words of ki yikach, that has to be fulfilled.
It has to be fulfilled that he takes the woman.
Right, not that, and not that. Now Rashi says that, not that.
Below shikach atzmo la, and not that he, I guess, takes himself to her.
Right. Yeah.
Meaning he needs to do the taking. He cannot be taken.
No, but here's not asking that she takes. That's a different problem. If she would say, "I'm taking you," that we know already. That but you might think you have a havmina. I am taking myself and bringing myself. I'm your husband. I'm your man.
The subject of the sentence needs to be the wife. He can't say it's not he needs to take her. He can't say, I am yours.
That's right. It's like someone outside of himself. Because he suggests, Rashi suggests that if it was that as a possibility, then it would say, oh no, it doesn't give it here. It doesn't say that, right? We're in a different Rishon, we'll find that it will give kind of a counter drasha that's not made, and therefore Kikach must mean her. But here Rashi just in a sense states that seems to be the meaning. He has to take somebody else, and then somebody else here is her. Okay, fine, you said it right. So we got that. Now
Right.
that gets
And
that
there's-
answer.
And we don't worry about, sorry, go ahead.
No, you tell me.
I was gonna say, and he's and we don't worry about it except to puzzle to kahuna.
Yeah, what's that about?
I'm not sure.
That means they're not at all. Sometimes you have a hint. Before we have chashinin, right? We have chashinin.
Yeah.
She has not been married. In a situation of a woman gets married and she gets divorced immediately,
We're saying
gets
she can
divorced
still marry.
She can't marry the Kohen. Can't marry the Kohen. Here, she's not married. When he gives her a ring and he says, I'm your husband.
So she
There's
was
no-
never married, and we read the Rashi to say, and it cannot even puzzle a kahuna situation, meaning she's fine. We don't worry about it.
Exactly.
Okay.
Okay, good. Ruben, I'm gonna go a little further. This will help you. I'm going further.
Just want to make
Now
sure.
you're gonna, go ahead, what? You
Is
got?
Rashi saying that any case of the Amrahi is therefore not valid? Because like every case of the Amrahi would be like, would it be Kikach, right?
Right.
So basically it just goes
No, he's not talking about that right now. He's talking about what he's talking about.
Yeah, but you could assume from what I
His
said.
lashon of clarification, your word, his lashon of clarification has to fulfill the boundary of ki'ikach. And ki'ikach means there's a direct object. And the direct object is not himself. When he says ki'ikach, it doesn't mean I take myself, and therefore there's no direct object.
Right, the Amrahi can never be Kikach.
Unless you're an existential schizophrenic. And he's not worried about that. Seriously, he's not worried about that. You can't take yourself. So it says kikach. To take yourself is an action of your is a taking of yourself. No, we don't got that thing. You got to go to the Musar world for those kind of things. We don't got that.
Wait,
We
Ruben,
don't have that
you're
power.
asking if this Rashi doesn't also apply to the previous question of whether she can say it?
Yeah, exactly. Rashi seems to be saying that she can never say it because anytime she says it, it couldn't be Kikach.
No, but so the action is, I think is that the action is the Kiddushin. And then the question is, okay, so we've done the action, which is like. the handing over
No.
thing.
Wait. Ruben, Yavni, let's say, will there be or could there be a situation that she could say something? That is a legitimate question based on what you guys are saying right now. The ki'ikach always seems to mean, and it does mean, a halachic requirement of the man taking the woman. Nonetheless,
I don't think
the
so. I
question
think
could be there. What are you going to? What do you got? Yeah,
because I think the point is that there was an action of the handing over the thing, and then the question is, and then we need also a clarification of what that action meant, what it was, and if the statement of what it was is she has been taken to him, then this would be arguing why there's a suffix that's okay. Then it's okay because so it doesn't whether he says it or whether she says it. But if the statement of what happened is he became her man, that's not what Kiddushin is. That's not what and so then we haven't
not
said
that he
that
becomes.
this is
For
Kiddushin.
sure, he becomes her man. But
What?
the action is that
No,
he
according to
becomes
this,
her
Rashi,
man
I think the action of
because-
Kiddushin is she becomes Mekudeshet to him. It's not something
Right.
that happens to him. And
In other words,
therefore,
this-
if he says,
Right.
Even
This
if he-
language that we're rejecting is where he is becoming essentially mikudash to her, which is backwards.
Yes, but when she says it, she's also
I-
mikudash to him. How else could she say it?
But that
Okay.
if
So when
she,
because she
everyone
says it,
said
"Hare
something.
ani
Sarah,
mekudeshet lacha." That's what
okay,
the language
let's hear
was.
from Sarah. What do you
no,
got,
I was
Sarah?
gonna say what
Then
Yavni was
stop
saying.
keep
It seems
up.
like Rashi could,
No,
you could
no.
imagine a world where Rashi says, oh, if she says something that that like clearly conveys that what's happening is that she is becoming mikudeshet to him and not the other way around, that would be okay.
Right. Right.
So we're
Right?
gonna see something like that.
And that's
gonna
it's
be
not a
right on.
contradiction.
That's not a contradiction. The stomach right now, that's not a contradiction. The contradiction, right? Okay, it's not a contradiction. All I wanted to say, oh, never mind what I wanted to say. We
Because
said
this
it, I said
situation
that.
is worse. This
Nah.
situation is worse than the previous E-Boyce Ema.
Yeah, of course. Okay. Hareni Shech, Hareni Balech, Hareni Rusech, Ein Kan Beit Mufresh, Uvchein Begerushin. Okay. But became Begerushin, not on law. Gomar law, Hare at Meshulechet, Hare at Megureshet, Hare at Muteret L'choladam, in a legal sense. Hare Zo Megureshet. Eini Ishech, I'm no longer your husband. Eini Balech, Eini Arusech, Ein Kan Beit Mechush. That what? In that case, Ein Kan Beit Mechush. They're not divorced. Period. I'm not going to concentrate on the divorce side. I'm going to keep it on the Kiddushin side right now. But what they're saying all the way through, that it's reciprocal. Okay, one mirrors the other. That's what I'm saying. Okay, now, Amar Le, I'm doing this because I want to. I got a time. Amar Le Rapapa Labaye. Lamemra. Yeah, I'm confused by this. What are you saying? Not me. Lamemra. No, I mean the Papa said. Lamemra the Savar Shmuel Yodayim She'ein Mochichot Havyan Yodayim. Now he's talking about something else within the statement that was made here. Shmuel is saying the expression Yodayim She'ein Mochichot means it's actually referring to a bait yad, let's say on your tea
Cup.
On your teacup. Yeah, right. Thank you. So which the yadot of a teacup, a yad that doesn't give forth a complete. It's not. So what happens with a yad on a teacup? You take the yad, and the yad will bring you the cup, the tea. I'm sorry. What did I call that again? The yad. How you say it in English? The yad.
Handle.
The handle. The handle will bring you the teacup, and therefore you can drink. Okay. So the analogy. But if the handle has been dislodged, your child has dislodged it, so you grab for the handle, and you have the handle, but it does. The teacup is still there. That's the analogy. What's the analogy to? To a drasha or to a statement. If the handle moves, if there's a statement and that statement implies more to the statement, then the hat statement works. If the hat statement, being the handle, doesn't apply the rest, I'll say this, and I will prove it. All the Americans be quiet for a moment. Gary, help me out on this. 4 repeat. What else is there in the statement? 4.
Why are you asking me?
Dafka you. 4, because Yavni will help you. 4 and
7
Yeah,
years
they-
ago?
what?
7 years ago?
Oh, so that's too bad. Okay, it's too bad that you're knowledgeable. I should have taken Josh. Maybe Josh.
Well, I'll
knows
ask you about the British Constitution.
But that's exactly would be the point. I can't give what British Constitution, but that would be that's exactly the point. So what he's confused about is the absence of li. If you say hare at mekudeshet, hare at meureset, hare at into, right, without the li, are you saying that that's a complete statement? Is that a clarifying statement? So here we can go say it now. So Amar le Rapapa Abaye Lamemra to Savar Shmuel. Shmuel was given a half statement. Yadayim she'ein mochichot having yadayim, that a half stated sentence is like a full stated sentence. It's like there's a yad there which brings forth the rest of the statement. But Tanan, Omer, Omer, Aha, Hareze Nazir, the Havinim, no, okay, stop there. Hareze Nazir. But we have a case in which a person, there's a statement made about becoming a Nazir, but it's not clear what the full statement is. And the man who is, I don't know, being recruited to be a Nazir, it says, aha, what is aha? Aha is like zeh or that. Or it's like a, indeed. Aha is like,
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, right. That's one way of saying it. Or it's like indeed.
That's
Yeah, okay, good.
says, yeah.
Right? No, you're right. Hare zen Nazir, Bavinim ba, and they asked the question there, the Havayas, the questions in the base medrash. The Dilma, aha, Batani, maybe he says, okay, aha, just I will be. How are you saying, how do you know he means that he'll be a Nazir? Maybe he's saying I'll be in a Tanit, some other statement. Havina, maybe it's how the title come back. V'amar Shmuel, Shmuel says, V'hu shahaya nizir over lefonav. Oh, I'll be, and he's looking at the Nazir, and everybody else is looking at the Nazir, and the guy says, I'm going to be that, or something like that. I'm going to be, that means he's not saying Tanit, he's saying Nazir. But what do you need? You need a context. The statement, when it's not fully clear, therefore needs a context. Tama, the reason why he becomes a Nazir, it's understood as a neder. The Nazir over lefonav, because the Nazir is with his wild stuff is walking in front of him. Halav hachi, but if he wasn't walking in front of him, lo. Okay. Hacha here, the Maya skinan. So what's going on? So the question is so Shmuel tells us in the case of Nazir, you have to have a clear context. And I mean, a clear understanding, a clear understanding of the statement. That's what one would think we would need. And Shmuel's upset, not Shmuel, who's it? It's Rav Papa. Rav Papa is upset that Shmuel seems to countenance a unclear, a half statement, a statement without a real handle attached to the full statement. And so he's understood by that. And he said, how can Shmuel hold this way when Shmuel himself says in the case of Nazir, there has to be some way that we achieve clarity. And what's the clarity we achieve by that? He's saying that I will be a Nazir as opposed to saying I will be in a fast. And people used to declare fasts all the time. I will be in a fast. It's that a Nazir was walking in front. And so therefore that provided the context for it. So how can Shmuel say that we don't have clarity? So the Gemara answers, well, actually, the way that it must have been, the Amar Li. We have to have a Li in the statement. Right?
What's the problem? The problematic part?
Wait. We have to have a Li in the statement. Therefore, right now, the Gemara has come to a place of saying then the statement of Harei At Mekudeshet and the other two statements, Harei Mureset, Harei At Into, all of them have to have li as a possibility. Leaving open the idea there also may be a contextual way of giving us an alternative to li. It leaves that open, and we're going to see that happen. And therefore, the Gemara says, EHE Siman. What is this whole li telling us? We know about li already. So the Gemara answers, Hani, now we're in Bava Medal, Hani Lishna Batroi Kamashmalan. Those are those other statements, Lishna Batroi, those statements that
Lateral.
Hareini Yeshech, Hareini Baalech.
yeah, right. Hachala Kativ Ki Kach, Veloshi Yikach Etzmo, the Hachakativ Vishalcha, divorce, Velosha Yishlach Etzmo. So basically, when I get to this point, is that what I wanted to say? What's saying is what's going on here is the notion of desire for full clarity. What happened here? We had these statements that didn't have li, and now the Gemara says it better have li in there. But it leaves open with that case of Nazir that there might be a situation that even if you don't have li, that the situation can work.
Can
I
just
was
ask
at a
question?
chuppah. Yeah, no, let me just finish this. I was at a chuppah with a very fine Rav, young Rav, and a very fine young Rabbah, and a chassan who kind of memorized the stuff because he wasn't as, he did a great person, but fine, and all that. A lot of very religious Jews. And I was an aide, and a certain other very fine rabbi from an institution I once worked at was an aide. This was last year. Was an aide, and after the whole thing took place, we looked at each other and we said to each other, "Did he say Lee?" The Masada Kedushin did not say Lee. Why does Masada Kedushin often not say Lee? Because we don't have a chashash that the Masada Kedushin is marrying the Kala. That's why that whole expression, did you marry them? No, I didn't marry them. I did the service. But sometimes, so they're worried about that. So you didn't say Lee to the chassan. And no one caught it except the two Adim, and we were both shocked. So what did we do? We went into Yichud and we had them do it over again. It's fine, it's great. Please take off the ring. Let me tell you, it wasn't easy to get the ring off. And we're starting again. And it doesn't mean it's fine. We're just, and meanwhile, you got the young Rav going out of his mind because he realized he blew it. What's the alternative? Alternative is to wait. What I said to the other aide, who was a very fine Rav, closer to my age than the other guy, but not my age, said to me, well, I said, you got to take care of it now. And by the way, this is mentorship for a moment. You got to take care of certain things as soon as you take care of them. Then it's like,
But maybe you have to use another item, like his tie or something.
Yeah, ready to hang him, but I'll take him by the tie. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, no.
Maybe she already received that
ring. By the way, the halacha is clear. You can use the same ring. You can use the halacha is clear. It's not a problem. It's halacha psuka. You can use the same ring.
Can I just ask about the analogy with the Nazir?
Say it again.
Is there some kind of what are the legal consequences of not keeping a vow of Nazirut? Is it the same as having to pay a get, or is it the same as, is the analogy just a question of what people can acquire for themselves, an obligation, or is it something more deep?
You have violated a netter. I'm just thinking out loud. You violated a netter, therefore there's a special korban for that, and you're a sinner.
Do you have to pay? Do you have to pay a penalty to the temple or something?
No. And that's why we don't also have marital vows. We have what we have, but we don't have vows. That's my first answer. That's what I got right now. That's what I think is the case. Okay, so let's take 4 minutes and we'll come back, finish up the Gemara. This is very important what we're doing. This is great. Thank you. See you in 4 minutes. 5 minutes. Okay, 5 after, whatever your times are. Okay, and Ruben, start us off here.
All right, Tamo Banan, Arat Ishti, Arat Arusati, Arat Kinuyali, Mekudeshet. Arat Sheli, Arat Birshuti, Arat Zekukali, Mekudeshet. So then the Gemara asks a question, why do you need to teach it into 2 separate parts? Why can't you just put everything in the same part? So the Gemara answered, Tana Tlat Tlat Shmainu V'Garsinu, which means that the Tana heard it in two separate. The Tana learned it as 2 separate statements and decided to teach it like that.
Well, so I heard in Shir from the Ravs that stuff when we learned Kiddushin, and he said, so what is it? You know, we heard it, so we learned it. So anyway, to make it quick, his initial point was that the first 3, while all 6 are kosher, the first 3 are the Iker Lashonot, while the 3 or refer to primary ideas, while the next 3 are derivative from it, but have its own difficulties. Or, you know, the language would work, but it works with difficulty. So Ishti refers to Nesuin, Arusati is Erusin, and the notion that all that's going on is a kinyan. That these are the 3 major ideas. Harei Shali is just not completely true, but it's true enough. Harei Birshuti is true, but not true enough. The Harei at Zekukali, which is a lashon of Yibum, and that has, you know, that's another way of saying it. But the thing about Yibum is we are attached, and there's no other way of happening. In other words, by the way, there's a whole question with Yibum of whether or not it needs, Miyabem needs to say Harayat Mekudeshet. He has to say the phrase because they're already married. It's not that the halacha of Yibum is that you need to do it, but the halacha of Yibum is you already are there. Anyway, that's what he said, and therefore the notion would be he heard the first 3, and that's the real learning, and then the rest was kind of how far can we extend the language? Okay, that's a statement. Iboilahu. Okay, who's going to do Iboilahu? Okay, Sarah, you read the Iboilahu.
Sorry, I had trouble finding my cursor. Ibailahu, miyuchedet li mahu, miyuedet li mahu, ezrati mahu, negdi mahu, atzurati mahu, tlati mahu, sigurati mahu, tachti mahu, tachtai mahu, tifusati mahu, lekuchati mahu, pashu mi hachada ditanya, haomer lekuchati harezu mekudeshet, mishum shena amar ki kach ish isha.
So for one, we got at least a very good, a good association. Where do the others come from? We see it in Rashi. So let's do Rashi quickly. Miuedet.
Miuedet lashon v'havu levasar echad.
I'm sorry, miuedet. Right. So you're right. So you have all these, early sort of things. Miuedet.
Miuedet lashon asher lo yada. Shehu lashon kiddushin ba'ama ha'ivriya. From Shemot.
Right.
Ezrati negdi lashon eselo ezer kenegdo. Shegurati lashon ve'iskor vasar, etc.
Right. Atsurati.
Atsurati lashon atzeret. Shetien nesefet imi levayid. V'rabotai amru lashon ki isha atzura lanu.
In other words, the the rabbis are his teachers that he doesn't like because then he goes and he doesn't like it so much. But all these are from Pesukim. Therefore, they're all Pesukim. They're all reference to Pesukim that you know, they're all biblical phrases with also an emphasis at the beginning of all these nice Edenic expressions, but they're all biblical expressions. That's
Except
basically
for Atzirati, which causes trouble, right?
which word. Well, okay, Ibailo.
Ibaila.
Is that the wait? What's the word?
No,
that's
no,
the
I meant
problem?
trouble. Rashi has trouble with it, right? So Rashi says,
Right, Rashi has trouble, but I think, you know, he's right to have trouble, but that's the problem with all the terms. But on the other hand,
not
they're
all of them
biblical.
actually can be grounded in the pasuk, but
Yeah, but for poets, it works.
Yeah.
He said, okay, so he takes it from somewhere else, but it works on the, okay, you catch what I'm saying. You boil it.
Sorry, just
Yeah.
Kikach ishisha. Ibailahu, Charufati Mahu, Tashma, Detanya Haomer Charufati Mikudesha, Shekim Biuda Korin La Arusa Charufa. So then they say, well, what about if you say Charufati? And it seems like in that works supposedly because in Yehuda, that's the what they call it.
Right, and we also
Ruba Dalma, but then is Yehuda the whole world? Not everybody says that. So
Yeah.
can't do it based on this narrow regional language. Hachikam Haomer Charufati Mikudesha Shana Marki Vihi Shivchan Echrefet Laish. Ve'od Biyuda.
Wait, what's that business? He Isha, he Shivchan Echrefet Laish. Necharef is one of those words not used anywhere else. What's that called? Those.
Hapax legomenon.
Okay, there the scholar comes out. Okay, right. So we're not exactly. So Rashi and the Chumash, and Vayikra doesn't know exactly. Is it Vayikra? Where is it? Yeah, Vayikra. It doesn't know exactly that, but it means attached. That's why I say that all of these are biblical terms that mean one form of attachment or another, and they all are not exactly right, or they have exact limitations, but nonetheless, these are biblical terms of attachment, and therefore we would say that in terms of, since they're considered to be kosher, in terms of linguistic or of dibur acceptability, if it's a biblical term that means you're attached, that works for marriage, because that the Bible is our Constitution, or is our whatever it is, right? So that's important. So therefore, that works here. I think that's what's going on, but it continues the conversation in the Gemara.
Okay. Right? How could it possibly? You're gonna right? What? And then they respond v'Yehuda ve'od lekra. Like, do you need to tell me both that this is what they say in Yehuda and give me a verse? One of those should be enough, or at least certainly the pasuk should be enough.
The pasuk should be enough. The pasuk
should be good enough. Why do you need like this demographic data? Elahachi kamar haomer charufa biyuda mikudeshet shekin biyuda korin la'arusa charufa. Okay, well in Yehuda, if you say that, then it works. So we can apply.
I want to know what's the halachic point that we get from this.
That it seems it has to be like a sort of generally understood way to talk. You can't say something.
It can't just be from the Bible. The Bible says, right? And it also has to be generally, so we're in terms of clarity, right? We would be clear about this. In terms of clarity, we have to have clear terms. This whole biblical thing seems to give us clarity, but it's only clear, now we're at it. It's only clear when it's clear, when it has social understandability, when it's a term that works. That's a big finish for us right now in halacha. If we take this halachically, which we're going to do.
I think something else that's going on is that it's even in the verses that it's citing, it's not clear that it's talking about marriage. I think that's also important.
Okay, Beseder, that's, they're right, right. They all have something, right. Continue, Sarah.
B'maya askinan, ilema she'ein
Wait, what's the question of B'maya Skinan?
What?
Look
Sorry.
at Rashi for B'maya Skinan.
Rashi for B'maya askinan, b'chanak lishne dekami bayalan, ihavu kiddushin olo. Heichidami, iv b'she'ein medaberi ma kudem lachein, lachein al iske kiddushin, v'chein b'hanach lishne de gerusin, shelo haya medaberi ma, or al esek.
In other words, the question is, do the terms stand on their own clarity, which right now we say are a biblical phrase. They're all biblical phrases, a biblical phrase, but now we say it has to also have social clarity. I'll just make up a term. It also has to have social clarity, right? But is there something else that needs to be there? And that the other thing that's be there is the what context we call
Maybe
it?
it needs some broader context of the conversation to like already set the
Conversational context. Okay, what's going on there? Okay, that's kind of okay. So go ahead. B'maya Skinan with these terms. And it was what will make these terms truly clear. Okay, B'maya Skinan, Elema.
Ilema she'ein medaberi mal al iske giteh v'kiddusha, menayada maka amarla. So if we might think that we'd be talking about a case where you're not talking about the subject already, but then how is she supposed to know what you're saying? Ela b'medaberi mal iske giteh v'kiddusha, afal gav delo ka'amarla nami. You can't say that we're only talking about a case where she knows where you're already talking about kiddushin or hitin, because then she doesn't have to say, you don't have to say anything. So that doesn't really work.
Ditnan, here's the proof, do the proof, Ditnan.
Im ishal iske gita v'kiddushea v'natan la gita v'kiddushea v'lo ferish Rabbi Yossi omer deo v'Rabbi Yehuda omer tzarich lefarish. So we have a machloka, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi says you don't need to say, once you've set the tone, you don't need to say any specific formula. And then Rabbi Yehuda says you need to say some.
And this goes back to our original conversation. Is, what do you have? You have the Maisa Kedushin. Do you have to have Li, or, the full statement, including with Li? Or is it enough to have a context for it? The word conversational context is not good, but a context. It's a context of interactional context. If the interaction so far is about getting married, then pulling, and then he pulled out a ring, and put on my finger. There were 2 Adam, and we're married. Do you need that statement or not a statement? Maybe that it says that shtika is sufficient. You just have to say a damn thing. So we have a machlokas. Rabbi Yossi says it's enough that they were talking before about, depending on the situation, Gittin or Kedushin. And Rabbi Yehuda says, no, you need the statement. B'amar Rav Huna, and this is very important. Sarah, do another line.
V'amar Rav Huna amar Shmuel halacha Rabbi Yossi. So Rav Huna says in the name of Shmuel that we've paskin like Rabbi Yossi.
Which means that it's sufficient to have
context.
And if you don't have context, what do you need then?
Then presumably you need like one of these formulae that.
You need a formula, right? One of these terms. That's what it seems. So what's this next line? I have a problem now. Amri, who's saying this? Amri?
This is it.
Yes, Nachum.
Under a chuppah, then that's pretty good context. If you're at a wedding, you probably wouldn't need to say anything.
Yeah, that was my case before, but I was from. Well, we're taking that away, right? Without that, Amri Lom. But what's the Amri? No, I'm just asking. I'm getting problems with the Mahalech of the Gemara. What's this next line? in the
Amway is
word?
answering the question of the Mayaskina and whether we're talking about a case in which they have a conversational context
good,
or they don't
good.
have a conversational
Right.
context, which we
So,
seem to
but
have
you
set
think-
up that neither of them really work so far.
So you
Right,
have to do that again, and read the line and do that again.
The line Amre,
Amri, yeah.
Amre לעולם מדבר עמה על עסקי גיטה וקידושיה, עסקי גיטה וקידושיה,
Mhm.
ואידי יהיב לה ושתיק. Oh yeah, anyway, so
No, that's the question. No?
right.
So we are
So-
talking about that very moral Iske
Right.
Gita Vikidusha, right?
So the answer is we are talking about it, which we've said, like, so then why should it be even be a problem? And
Mhm.
the הכי במאי עסקינן דהיב לה, ואי דהיב לה ושתיק הכי נמי, הכי במאי עסקינן דהיב לה
No,
ואמר
before
לה,
you go to that, the Yadi Blavashata Hachanami, so you don't even need any statement. Right, that's what you're saying. Okay.
that's
good.
the challenge that we already have.
Okay, I think to have moved to Yavni, Yavni.
Sorry,
continue off of
I don't
this.
mean to take over.
Yeah, I know you don't mean, okay, but I'm moving you for a moment. Sarah just worked hard. Good. You work for a moment. Hach b'ma'askinen.
הכי במאי עסקינן דהיב לה ואמר לה בהני לישנה, והכי כמבאי להני לישנה לקידושי כאמר לה, או דילמה למלאכה כאמר לה. So it's saying like Dav, if they had been talking about Kiddushin, and if he hadn't said anything, they were talking about Kiddushin, and he gave her, and she knows it's Kiddushin, and everyone knows it's Kiddushin. But because he used these weird language of Hareat Tzilati or whatever, she thinks maybe he's changing the conversation to something else. And even though they were talking about marriage, now he's offering her a job, and that's the significance of the Kiddushin.
And
Of the
Lashon.
not of the kiddushin of the
No.
transfer.
There's a problem here. What's the
And-
problem?
and-
It's formulated as a problem here,
Right.
not an answer. I'm
And
saying,
and so then the teko is, oh, I thought the teko was then referring back to saying like we don't know what to with each of these cases. It's a machloket, and we don't each of these cases of these different languages.
anybody else's opinion? Sounds.
I
You hear
thought
what Yavni said?
I thought it was Teku on like how we're on how we're interpreting what case we're talking about, like on the answer to the Hachim B'Mayaskinan question.
No,
Okay,
Teku.
cool. Huh?
No, Teku has to be Teku's response to a problematic. Yavni, do yours again. Do what you said again.
My what I thought it was saying is that we have concluded that it is indeed, it's like Dav in the case where they weren't talking about marriage, then these phrases are definitely meaningless. So that can't be what we're asking all these questions about. But in the case where they were talking about marriage, and then he says one of these weird phrases, then we are now in a case of doubt, and
Or
because she
are
doesn't
we
know-
in a case? Or are we in a case of doubt?
or are we in a case of doubt? Oh, it's asking the question.
Yeah. In other words, do the phrases, you just cancel out the phrases. I think the question is, do the phrases work? Or are the phrases still too ambivalent, even though we tried as much clarity as possible? Do you hear me, Sarah? You hear what I'm trying? What do you think, Ruben?
No, same thing. I think the takeaway is as to whether those phrases work or don't work. Because at the end of the day, and the way I read it, understood it, is that those phrases are not as clear as if it was silent, right? Like they introduce another layer of confusion, like Yavni was saying. So basically, she's not. If you give her a piece like money and don't say anything, so then it could be understood that it's for kiddushin, right? But when you add those statements, it adds an extra layer of confusion. Is he offering me a job? Does he want to marry me? Like we're not really sure, right? So they end up saying like, well, listen, we don't know.
We had a question here. How do we know what he means or what he's saying to her? Again, it's the question about clarity. This whole Gemara is trying to get to clarity. And one of the ways
No.
of getting to clarity is not to get to clarity. It allows for many terms, including what was designated here as weird terms or strange terms, because strange terms such because we don't see it being used, even though they have biblical warrant, and even though they can be argued for as words that mean attachment. But in the end, they're actually not so clear. So what does that do to us? If you have a teku, what does that do to us as rabbis, as poskim, in terms of this?
At least to Safek Darbanan, I would say.
Safek.
And therefore what? What do we do?
You give a get with Safek.
I think lehatchila, you want to have as much clarity as possible. If we're saying we went through this whole journey,
Right, so those are the two sides, right? So that forces us back to the top three. Harayat Mukudeshali, Harayat Muresa, was it Muresali, or Haray, what were those top three? Harayat Ishti, Harayat Arusati, Harayat Mukudeshali, or maybe Harayat Mukudeshali. It forces us to standardization. If the same terms can refer to being married, can also refer to being a house worker, then we don't have clarity.
It also introduces here the idea of silence being active. If he hadn't said anything,
Yeah, right.
then there would have been kiddushin.
Right.
So these terms introduce unclarity.
Ah, very good, very good. Even though these terms, I'm trying to make your argument, even though these terms have biblical warrants and mean attachment, and maybe allow for other good things, nonetheless, it's problematic. I think that's what's going on in the whole clarity conversation. Anybody want to add anything here? Thank you for that, Josh. Okay, Ruben, what do you got?
The problem is that we don't know as to whether she understood or not, right? So the problematic shifts to her perception in a way.
Have we gotten there yet?
I think that's the conclusion of the Gemara, right? Is she clear on what he's trying to say, or is she not? Tiku, we don't know. So then we don't know what her status is.
I think those are two separate things. The one thing is, yeah, you're right. Well, there's a question of what she understood. I don't know if it's been introduced in the Gemara yet. Certainly introduced in the halacha, the further halacha conversation, in which I will say right now, we have the issues of, does she understand? First of all, does he understand? Does she understand? Does the community understand? Are these community terms? There seems to be at least three levels of clarity here, but I don't see it fully expressed here. Yes, you're right. It's about her understanding here. I'm sorry. Right now, Ruben, I apologize. Right now, it's about her understanding. She doesn't know what he's saying to her. You're offering me a marriage. You're offering me a job.
I think it's not only what she's
saying. There's a lot of remarks to that, I realize, but nonetheless.
I think it's not only what she's saying, but what a neutral Beit Din would assume that she should have known.
Right. Well, the neutral Beit Din said she should have. Right. Well, that's yeah. What we're going to get to in the halacha is when she comes back. So yeah, I understood it. Now, once she says I understood it, and nobody else understands it. It's like no one gets this. Everyone's going, huh? No one understands. They even don't understand what's going on. But she said she got it. So is that sufficient? I'm just asking right now as a question to hold up in the air. Is that going to be sufficient? In other words, including the fact that they both have the Ratzon. They have a Ratzon and all that,
So Tachlis, what's her status with the Teku, right? Is it like is it a Safek Darbanan?
Well, I'm not sure. I think the Teku, I don't know. I think the Teku was what I said.
I think that's how it
leaves us. Excuse me? Well, let's see.
I think that's how we end up with the suffix in these cases, right? That because we have this teku, because it isn't resolved, that when we start talking about these as being like suffix condition.
But if you take is about her understanding, there is no Safek Bichlal, because like she hasn't understood that it was a Shem Kiddushin. That's what the whole take was about.
There's this right.
No.
But I'd say there is a constant problem. I like what everyone says. We're going to finish the Gemara in a moment. And there's a constant problem, but I have a sudden memory of another wedding I did, in which I would always have the chassan say Harei Abba Kodesh Li, and also he give the English formula. Okay. Because I found out, anyway, I thought that was the practice. And I learned that from very good, and the chassan puts it, he goes, Harei Abba Kodesh Li, Kadas Moshe, you know, the Bad Zo Kadat Moshe Yisrael. Behold, I am betrothed to thee. I betroth thee, whatever that term is, how the English translation has it, with this ring, to be my wife and my snuggle bunny. He did the Hebrew without snuggle bunny. Snuggle bunny was part of the English. And the cow gave a smile because she knew this was coming, you know, okay. So I had to do it over again. You know, you have to go to a baiting later on if the marriage doesn't work out. And what's the parish of Snuggle Bunny? You know, is that what kind of Tanai and Bastin is it? Hey, but so I don't know, I think that, you know, these things, you know, lead towards conformity. And I think conformity is such a good thing, but I think that's what happens. Okay, let's finish up the Gemara. So the Gemara then goes to Gufa. Okay, so who's there? Andres, Gufa, how are you?
גופה היה מדבר עם האישה על עסקי גיטה וקידושיה, ונתן לה גיטה וקידושיה, ולא פירש. רבי יוסי אומר דיו. Okay, so we continue saying that if he gives her the get or the money.
No, yeah, right. He gives her the get or the right. I'm sorry. And
the money, and he doesn't say anything, then Rabbi Yossi says, Kiddushin or the get happened. It was okay.
Yeah, right.
And then Rabbi Yehuda Omer Tzarich lefaresh. Then he says the opposite, Rabbi Yehuda. He says no, he needs to say the formula. Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Amar Shmuel, vehu sheoskin beoto inyan. And he says that this is only when they are speaking about these themes.
Yeah, there's about Gittin or Kedushin, right? L'chein Omar Rabbi Elazar Omar Rabbi Yoshia. Keep on going.
לכן אמר רבי אלעזר, אמר רבי אושייה, והוא שעוסקים באותו עניין כתנאי, רבי אומר, והוא שעוסקים באותו עניין, רבי אלעזר ברבי שמואל אומר, אף על פי שאין עוסקים באותו עניין. And they say, okay, this is like a fight they had before the Tanaim, who were these Tanaim, Rabbi and Rabbi Elazar bar Rabbi Shmuel, and one says, yeah, they have to be speaking about Kiddushin and Gittin, and Rabbi Elazar says, no, they don't have to be speaking about this.
And so Gemara asks, V'lav.
ואליו דעוסקין באותו עניין, מן הידע, מאי כאמר לה, אמר אביי, מעניין לעניין באותו עניין. מעניין לעניין באותו עניין.
Yeah, in other words, it's sufficient if it's, as Rashi says, they're talking about zivug, as long as they're talking about the general area of marriage, that creates the context. We move to the context conversation. So now we're saying the conversation about context is sufficient if the context is still clear enough, is considered clear enough if they're talking, even if it's only made Indian votes on Indian, according to that shita. Or does it have to be that's about getting married? Amar Abaye, meaning they also, okay. Amar Rav Huna, go on. Amar Rav Huna, Amar Shmuel.
Amar Rav Huna, Amar Shmuel, Alacha Rabbi Yossi, again.
Which you need what? Yossi Paskin said you need what?
That you don't have to be speaking about the inyan.
No, he says the Inyan, right? Does he
Okay.
say? Yeah, he says Inyan, right? Okay, fine.
Okay, you need to be speaking about this. אמר לי רב ימר לרב אשי, ולהא דאמר רב יהודה, אמר שמואל, כל שאינו יודע בטיב גיטין וקידושין, לא יהא לו עסק עמהם, אפילו לא שמיע לי, דרב הונא, אמר שמואל, אמר לי, אין אחי נמי.
I mean, how far do you have to know? Anybody that's not baki in these halachas shouldn't be doing these laws. What does Rashi say on this? Rashi says, Lo ye esakim ahem, towards the bottom of the Rashi. Lo ye esakim ahem, read the Rashi.
להיות דיין בדבר שמייתיר איסור ערווה, וזהו איבט, I don't know.
Ivat she'eno yachol l'taken. It's a pasuk. A crooked things that cannot be corrected. I mean, you made something not straight, you made it crooked and can't be corrected. So you have to know. So you have to even know the psak that when Rav Huna quotes Shmuel, that when Rav Huna said to Shmuel, that said, no, I'm sorry, this thing that you have to know everything. In other words, you have to know the law, that if you don't know how to do the halacha, keep yourself out of it, because you can create great damage. And that's how this section really ends. That's really the case. Now, come with me for a few minutes to the tour. We got the tour. And now we'll see that a lot's already tired, but now you see life is beautiful as we read the tour. Life couldn't be more beautiful. Okay. Let's go. Okay, Lexi, read the tour. When did the tour live? What was his name?
Starting with
The
Aleph?
tour. Yeah.
Okay.
Who was the tour?
The Torah
I'll just say, because I wrote down his dates. 1270 to 1335. Rabbeinu Usher. Okay, fine. Go ahead.
The Kesef Kitzad. So how do I do Kiddushin with Kesef? Notamna bifnei shnayim pruta ushavet pruta ben Kesef v'hu mishkal chatzis ora ben kol davar. So okay, I give her in front of two witnesses something that is either a literal pruta or something that's worth a pruta. Well, merla li uhoreat li linto v'chein b'chol hashon shem
Lashon Kiddushin
are designated for me, you are engaged to me. Right, things that are unambiguously Lashon of Kiddushin in the place in which this is occurring. Provided she understands that these are languages of Kiddushin. But if we were already talking about Kiddushin prior to this act, even in the case of even in the absence of saying anything, then that would count as Kiddushin, because we assume that she understands that we were talking about Kiddushin and now I'm giving her this ring. And so we assume she understands what's going on and consents to it. So provided that there wasn't a break in between us talking Kiddushin and me actually giving you this ring. And all the more so if they were already talking about Kiddushin, and then while giving her a Shavet Pruta, he says one of the Kiddushin phrases and she doesn't necessarily understand it, we still think it's Vadai Kiddushin, because if we say in the case where they were already talking about those matters and there was no phrase associated with it, that it's Kiddushin, we say Kol Shekain, that with a relatively normal Kiddushin phrase, even if she says she doesn't understand, this should be relatively clear.
Okay, read now. Let's go to the Beit Yosef. Go to V'chein b'chol lashon it's towards the top, like 5 lines down, probably whatever base Yosef you have. V'chein b'chol lashon shemoshav lashon kiddushin v'adai b'os l'makom. Let's see, continue.
ומה שכתב וכן בכל לשון, שמשמעותו לשון קידושין ודאי באותו מקום, שם, so referring to חרופתי מהו, will be the case if I say you are my servant, this thing related to a slave.
You are a
Tashma, right. תשמע, הומר חרופתי מקודשת, שנאמר, והיא נחרפת לאיש. בעוד ביהודה קוראים לארוסה חרופה. Right, so the Gemara said, brings in this teaching that if someone says charufati, that is kiddushin, because we have this pasuk that like v'hi necharefet leish, where we use this language that seems to refer to a sort of designation vis-a-vis a man. And in Yehuda, we use the language of charufa to mean like engagement. Uparchinan Yehuda v'od l'kra. So it's like, why do I need both the example of Yehuda and the pasuk? Shouldn't the pasuk be sufficient? Maskinan ala hachi kamar homer charufa b'Yehuda mikudeshet.
A pasuk itself would be sufficient.
Right. So rather, this is what it's saying. This is why we needed to bring both of them. Homer charufa b'Yehuda mikudeshet shekem b'Yehuda korin la'arusa charufa. That like what it's saying is that dafka, the Yehuda thing is meant as kind of kimta on the pasuk, that like because we have this reference and dafka in Yehuda, they use that language to mean engagement. If someone used that language in Yehuda, or people know this is language of engagement, then she would be mikudeshet, and presumably not in other places.
V'chein b'harosh, good. V'chein harosh.
Right. V'chatav harosh, v'chein b'chol lashonot shel irusin sheb'chol makom makom. Right. So the Rosh says the same concept applies to other things, that like we acknowledge that there's going to be different languages that relate to engagement in different places. So as long as it's something that's understood in that place to be language of engagement. וכך כתוב הרמב"ם בפרק ג' וזה לשונו, ויש לאיש לקדש האישה בכל לשון שהיא מכרת בו, ויהיה משמע הדברים באותו לשון שקנה. Okay, so same thing. The Rambam says he can use any language that she'll understand, as long as it implies that she is being acquired. Imiu בעניין חרופתי כתב הרמב"ם בפרק הנזכר, הרי זה מקודשת סתם ומשמעו בכל מקום. So as in he said that like he didn't include charufati in this thing about like the like makom based lishonot. He just kind of wrote that like if you say charufati, that she would be mikudeshet, and doesn't like expand upon that or qualify that. And so the Iran is surprised by this. Given the Bayahi Bigmara,
Smashma for how the Rambam said, well, chomokom.
Right. So as in like he doesn't bring in charufati either in the like mekomot based lishonot, or doesn't bring it in as saying safek kiddushin or anything like that. He just says like if you say harayat charufati, he lumps that in with the things that count as like vadai kiddushin.
Okay, so the Ran has a problem.
So the Ran is surprised. Right. So Vatama alav haran dekevan the bayahi b'gemara charufati mahu v'lo ishita shetei mikudeshet gemora ela beYehuda nida meikra husirle the mikudeshet lama'an tamar the v'chatzi shivcha v'chatzi bat chorin hakatuv medaber kevan the lo sali kacha v'chele heichini smolchu v'nema the mikudeshet gemora v'lo nechush l'kiddushay sheni. So I'm gonna backing it up. The main issue of his is that we're surprised that could just say this when the Gemara itself is like unsure what the deen about like charufati would be, and the only clear seeming conclusion that we get from the Gemara is that dafka in Yehuda it would count as kiddushin, but the Gemara doesn't seem to imply that it would necessarily count as vadai kiddushin in any other place. So unclear why the Rambam can just say this stam. And so he the Meikra who's sphere.
So it's a big question. The Rambam, he basically rejects the Rambam. He rejects the Rambam. In other words, from the way we learned the Gemara too, it seems like okay in Yehuda, and maybe Yehuda is also a paradigm in terms of who every place, every lashon, but it's not exhaustive. That Yehuda is good everywhere. That the word chavfati, learning it from Yehuda is good everywhere. Doesn't make any sense. But huadin, okay.
Right. So
Katav.
as in, we have this whole thing. Well, we had before the Huadin, basically this other bit is that he's like, this would only seem to work for the one who thinks that that pasuk about the like slave is referring to somebody who is half free and half a slave. Because otherwise we say like, how could you learn from the case of like a non-Jewish slave that this would be language of engagement? That's not the same thing. And the Gemara is like docha that explanation. So he's like, how could you be like somech on that explanation to say this would be effective if even the Gemara doesn't rely on it.
And so now we have the Ritva. Okay. The high tana diktani. Skip a line. The high tana is the Ritva.
Right. So this whole thing basically around is like this should be Safek Kiddushin because whatever, we have all these different unresolved questions from the Gemara. The Haritzvah katav b'chidushav sh'tamo shel harambam zal mishum de hai tana diktane de lo havi mikudeshet ela b'Yehuda mishum de necharefet dekra en lashon kiddushin de b'shivcha knanit hakatuv medaber ve'anam kaimalan b'chatzia shivcha v'chatzia bat chorin hakatuv medaber v'shayach tzad kiddushin ba.
So basically, what do they do with the Rambam? The problem on the Rambam. How can the Rambam say it's a lashon everywhere? It's a proper lashon. It's only a proper lashon for a specific case of a person who's a chatzi shivcha and chatzi bat chori, and that's all. That's the case. But those are minor cases. Those are not.
Right.
And therefore, the principle remains. The principle remains. Not like how we understood the Rambam, they reinterpret the Rambam, how the principle remains that she has to understand, and it depends upon the place where she lives. That seems where it ends.
Right.
Okay.
I think the Rambam had a different girsa.
That could very well be. Now, come with me to the Bach, okay? First thing the Bach says, it could be Shabbat Pruta also Mechuber or Tarka. That's not where we're going to really go into now. She has to understand. He quotes the Beis Yosef. The Vade Lo Kaya Omer Harei At Mekudeshet. I don't see this in the Beis Yosef, but he adds Harei At Mekudeshet.
It's later on Yosef.
What?
It's confusing. It comes up in like one of the later Seifim of the Beit Yosef, not in Aleph, but it is in there.
Right. Okay, so he quotes, you're correct, thank you. Harei at Mekudeshet, to Havade Kuli Alma Yadi. Harei at Mekudeshet is a trope. It's a universal knowledge. It's exceptional, and that's why, of course, it's been mandated. Of course, once it's mandated, it retains its exceptionability. But the halacha, the lashon kiddushin hain, the omra, the lo yada, the lashon kiddushin hu. She says, I didn't know what it meant. Lo mehemda. This is the one case we don't believe her. Ela ashar lishnei koi. And the other lashonos, she said she didn't understand, we can believe it. The tema din came lama katav rabbeinu v'chein b'chol lashon ubilvad shehi tavin the kaven the masha amra ubilvad shehi tavin eino chozer el ashar lashonot chus meharei at mekudeshet. Right? Lo yitztak omar v'chein b'chol lashon. Okay, and this is where he says here. In other words, there is an exceptionability to Harei Ad Mekudeshet because it's just the thing that people know. That's what he's bringing in here. But in terms of all the other Lashonot, it would be, I think, anybody disagree? It would be dependent upon the place and dependent upon what do people know in the place, whether or not that, and it seems that if she states that there seems to be a push here. I really don't understand what he said to me. it could very well be, just because of big machlokas halacha, that she would be believed. Because near the, look at this, near the Spirle Rabbeinu, the Af, the Rabbeinu, the Torah, the Af Omer Hare At L'Kudeshet, Sarech Shetavim. And it even goes further that according to the Torah, even Hare At L'Kudeshet, which we just made the claim for its universality, even that might be suspect. V'hachi mashma b'samach eitzel mashamar rabbeinu v'kol shekain imamar loshen kiddushin v'adai kumoshe katati shalok, and he goes on from there. Now, what I want to point out is this. Go to the Ran, which is further. Gami divrei haran nira shaloch chilek sharei katav v'zel shano u'b'dei achlish yachrine duel de'ifshet halom demahani kagon l'kucharti kenuyali. When will it be believed? When you have the other context, Iske Kedushin, he's talking to her conversationally before. The Yoda Michael Marla, she knows what he's saying, even if she doesn't know. She knows. Or that she says herself, I'm accepting the Kedushin. Low, that wouldn't work. That's the lesson of the Ran. Okay. Whole question is what is the situation of what she has to know? She needs to know. We assume she knows when it's in the context of a place where she needs to, where people talk this way. But if she says she doesn't know, then maybe we should believe her in all cases. And the only question that we really have is on the Harei Abdukudeshali, which has a super chazaka of Kuli Alma. Everyone knows. Everyone's been to movies. Everyone's been to plays. They've talked about it. They know the term what Harei Abdukudeshali, or whether or not it has the context of the prior conversation. Now let me say, and that's the line right after Atan L'Shano. It says, he says all those are actually on the same level. Alma, according to the Ram, then in every case, even with Harei L'Kudeshet, this is the Ran, explaining the Ran, Sarah Shatavim, or she had the context of hearing that. So context now, we didn't see it I don't think we, in a sense, we saw it in the Gemara, but now it's gone to a much further extent. In that that the Lashon totally depends upon, according to the Shita, totally depends on whether she understands it. We don't go by a super chazaka of everyone knows, Harei L'Kudeshali knows what that means. Ran says we don't pass in this way, and the notion of context can become sufficient on its own. That, but we couldn't say it's based on the Gemara. She quotes the Beis Yosef. He quotes the Beis Yosef again. Beit Yosef 5 lines down. Hey, view v'zal shano v'imo mer shenim makterik b'hem kaven shelo amar lei loshon kiddushin shekol noshim yodot umaki wrote akan l'shono. So that's the Beis Yosef. Beis Yosef is not like the Ran. The Beis Yosef is really going in the direction is that Harei L'Kudeshet Li, and he makes Harei L'Kudeshet Li from all the possibilities becomes the one possibility. Why? Because of its universal understandability, or it's being universally understood. Now, was there anything else says? The Yira Mizah, 3 lines down. the Omer Hare Abikudeshali Aina Menet Lamar Shalali Bina, so she won't be believed according to Beis Yosef. After Lidchot, but the Bach says you can actually push it aside. Lamar the lo kotzav kain ela mishum the urcha de milta hachi. The reason why the Torah seems to pass in this way, according to the Beis Yosef, is not because it is universally understandable on its own merits, but the urcha de milta is just the way it is that most people understand it. Hacha, havish anashim yodot b'lashon harayat mekudeshet. Aval vadai, but for sure, hecha she'omeret shelo hevina. But where she said, I didn't understand it, ain't hachinam midein elu kiddushin. So we have on the harayat mekudeshet li the fact, is it part of like all lashonot? We have those parts. It's just like any other lashon. If it's a place that people understand, they understand. Can we say that that the lashon of Harayat Mekudeshet Li has a deep understandability? No, we can respond. It doesn't have a deep understanding. It's Urcha de Milta. It just happens that way. But how can you tell and say that someone's married when she says, I didn't understand? And that seems to be the halacha is it's the Bach, as the Bach understands it. We'll have to see when we look at the Shulchan Aruch next time. We'll have to see with this. Okay. No, this is one more thing I want to say. Tosfos also says that the most it's Safek Mekudeshet was Harayat Mekudeshet Li. So let's go to the last line of the Bach of this paragraph Aleph right before the bet. He frees, we say about the Forshim, the poskim. He frees on Mido Hachmer Aful Shanota Acherim. So if we're careful regarding a get on the other Lashonot, it's a chumrah. In other words, we're being machmir in the case of having a get because maybe she did understand. But to say she's married, we're not saying she's married. If she's not, nira midvarav, the af legabe harayat mekudeshet. Even regarding harayat mekudeshet, spirle the eno elas safek kiddushin. So I gave most of the summary, but let me kind of say it this way. I want to say we have different interests here. Is she really married? It seems at the end of the Bach, as the Bach argues, she's only really married when she says she's really married. If she didn't understand, even in the case of Harayat Mekudeshet, we have to say, we can't say she's married. On the other hand, on all the Lashon, so that becomes paradigmatic. If in the case of Harayat Mekudeshet Li, we're going to believe her that she didn't understand, a thing which is an Urcha de Milta that people really do understand. If we believe that, we have to say about all other Lashonot as well. That's one side. She's not married. On the other side, we're going to have a get, because maybe she is married. And that's a chumrah. It doesn't mean she's wrong. It doesn't mean we don't believe her. But since certain terms are so universal, and one term has great universality, we're going to say have a get to make everybody kosher. Okay. We now in 15 minutes reviewed all the Gemara, or most of the Gemara. And I'd like to do with you next time is to finish it up. It's going to go a little bit faster. There's a section from Daf Zion, only 5 lines to look at, and I'll send that to you. So yes, we are achieving in the process of understanding the conflicts between a makom, the individual person, in terms of her, in terms of that, how much clarity should the person be giving, and what's the context for that clarity. And those things are now going to come up and explode and bubble forth in the next halachas. So yes, to all of you.
But just, sorry to it's dawned on me that the way that the Rambam says it, Shehima Keret Bo, is just in awareness of the fact. But the way that the Torah says it, it implies that she needs explicit understanding of what she's getting into. But I mean, no wedding would be Tofes today if that was the case. Because how many people really understand what it is they're getting into?
Like just Havana, the fact that he's trying to be Mekadesh her. I don't think she has to have an idea of the full ramifications of
the
what
familiarity with familiarity
that she's
with the process.
that she's forbidden to other men.
Okay, so we're going to work on different things, but Gary, we're going to work on your guidance of young couples skills. We'll work on.
It wasn't me. It was Rav Henkin. But you know.
Okay, very good.